Good day, everyone. Today, my groupmate and I will be discussing about our topic entitled The Speech Act of Complaining Among Meranaw Students in MSU Main Campus, Marawi City. This is Jana Ilham Akraman, and I'll be tackling about the brief background of the study, the research questions, and the theoretical framework. Later on, my groupmate Lawi Almadini will be tackling about the methodology of our study. As a means of communication between two people, language plays a very important role, and it has two forms, oral and written. So according to Crystal 1987, pragmatics refers to the different factors that manage the language with whom we choose to use inside the set of language that might please if it is used in a social interaction and its influence on others. So therefore, the variables of pragmatics that influence our collection of grammatical construction as a sound pattern are the meaning we create by introducing the language as a means to interact through people, the intended process. So the study of pragmatics tries to associate it with the meaning of terms used by the persons in their social circumstances and the choice of words in a context. In relation to pragmatics, Leach 1983 pointed that pragmatics is a study of meaning and how to apply the speech to some specific conditions, along with a component of rendering a speech in a situation and further paving the way for a central concept to be decided whether it deals with the semantic or the pragmatic phenomena. So under this is politeness, speech act, and the speech act of complaint. So politeness is a general aspect of the social behavior to a speaker towards different wishes of the addressee in different concerns. So the linguistic expression of politeness can be investigated by the English linguists Levinson and Penelope Brown in year 1979. In this, they have introduced some of the prominent strategies used to line the differences of maximizing in exchanges. So example, using formal way in terms of address or indirect speech acts. The aim of these strategies is a way for fulfilling required particular goals. Therefore, it is a set order to face an addressee. One of the major terms of these strategies is a face that shows the self-image of a speaker in public, and it can be divided into two major types: the positive face and the negative face. So positive face shows the wishes of the individual, and it can be appreciated as well as respected by others. A negative face shows the wish that it is not restricted in set of choices to speaker about social behavior. In Speech Act, it is a spoken utterance that mainly focuses to deal with some actual situation to the communication. The definition of the Speech Acts was first proposed in 1911 up until 1960 by the British philosopher John Longshaw Austin, who worked in Oxford and described his theory in the series of lectures he delivered that were even published before his death in 1962. The name is With Words How to Do It. Austin portrays the language of philosophy in order to preserve one of the core purposes of language and in order to carry out socially relevant acts. The use of language is driven by the preoccupation of speech acts. In Speech Act of Complaining, a complaint is used by most people, especially when people want to express dissatisfaction, pain, uneasiness, censure, resentment, or grief, or even finding faults in others. So, Olstein and Wenbach 1993, as cited in De Vesey 2003, asserts that in the Speech Act of Complaining, where the speaker displeasure or annoyance as a reaction to a past or going action, the consequences of which are perceived by the speaker. So, in our research questions, this study seeks to answer the following questions. Number 1, what are the complaint strategies of Meranaw students? Number 2, how do Meranaw students employ complaint strategies to the following addressees? Letter A, elders. Letter B, high status. Letter C, low status. Letter D, friends. And letter E, strangers. In our theoretical framework, this research will use the following theory and typology to analyze the complaint strategies of Meranaw students in Mindanao State University main campus. So we will be using Speech Act theory, politeness theory, taxonomy of complaint strategies by Trosborg 1995. Speech Act theory. So Austin 1962 states that authoring sentence means performing an action. In other words, saying something is doing or performing an act. According to Austin 1962, there are three kinds of acts. First is locutionary act, which refers to the utterance of a sentence with determinate send and reference. Second is the illocutionary act, which refers to the making of a statement, offer, promise, or etc. in authoring a sentence by virtue of the conventional force associated with it. And lastly is the perlocutionary act, which refers to the bringing about the effects on the audience by means of sentences, such effects being special to the circumstances of utterance. Politeness theory addresses the nature and function of politeness in communication as well as the list of politeness strategies that presents the concept of face. Face is defined as an individual's feeling of self-worth or self-image and a reputation or good names that everyone had and expected everyone else to recognize. Said 2009 admits that face, according to Brown and Levinson 1978, has two components. Positive face is associated with a participant's desire to be liked and approved by others and his or her need to be connected and to be a member of the same group. And negative face is associated with a member's need to be independent and not to be imposed on by others. Similarly, Searle 1976 develops Austin's Speech Act theory further and focused on the illocutionary acts performed by the speaker. He categorized illocutionary acts into 5 groups. First, declarative. The defining characteristic of this is the successful performance of its members bring about the correspondence between the propositional content and reality. Second, assertives. The point or purpose of the member of the assertive class is to commit the speaker in varying degrees to something is being the case to see the truth of the expressed proposition. Third, expressives. The illocutionary point of this class is to express the psychological state in the sincerity condition about a state of affairs specified in the propositional content. Fourth, directives. The illocutionary point consists in the fact that they are attempts by the speaker to get the hearer to do something. And lastly, commissives. The illocutionary acts whose point is to commit the speaker to some future of action. In relation to complaint as speech act, Trosborg 1995 defines complaint as an illocutionary act in which the speaker expresses his or her disapproval, negative feelings, and etc. towards the state of affairs described in the proposition and for which he or she holds the hearer responsible either directly or indirectly. Yule 1996 clarifies that when the speaker tries to save other people's face, he has to care for their negative face once and their positive face once. The word negative doesn't have bad meaning, but it shows the opposite pole from positive. So when one needs to be free of action and not to be imposed on by others but independent, he has negative face. When a participant needs to be liked and accepted by others, to be treated as a member of the same group, and to recognize that his or her wants are shared by others, he has a positive face. Simply, positive phase reflects the need to be connected and the negative phase reflects the need to be independent. More so, face-threatening acts are acts such as disapproval or contempt which challenge a person's positive face, and acts such as requests for action which limit a person's freedom and challenge addresses negative face. This is according to Yazdanfar and Bonyadi 2016. Said 2009 asserts that face in many verbal interaction may be threatened. Threatening negative face, which represents damaging participants' autonomy, involves orders, requests, suggestions, and advice. Threatening positive face that decreases an individual's self and social discretion involves expressions of disapproval, disagreements, accusations, and interruptions. Anyhow, by using expressions of apologies and confessions, speakers may threaten their own face. Yule 1996 indicates that there are many various methods of performing face-save acts since every person generally tries to respect the face wants of others. Taxonomy of Complaint Strategies. Trosborg 1995 states that a complaint is defined as an illocutionary act in which the speaker, the complainer, expresses his or her disapproval, negative feelings, and etc. Trosborg 1995 set up the certain complaint strategies having 8 subcategories derived from the 4 main categories. Number 1, no explicit reproach. Hinting strategies may be employed by the complainer to get rid of a struggle. The complainer indicates that he or she informed about an insult and makes the complainee indirectly responsible in expressing the assertion in the existence of the complainee. The complainee is unaware of the insult, whether indicated or not, as the complainer indirectly clarifies that something is unsatisfactory. Number 2, expression of annoyance or disapproval. Regarding a particular state of affairs, he or she seems unfavorable for him or her, annoyance, dislike, disapproval, etc., which can be reflected by the complainer. The consequences producing from an insult for which the complainee is covertly responsible for may be reflected by the utterances. Number 3, accusations. Trosborg 1994 mentions 2 levels of directness. The complainer can ask the hearer questions about the context or demonstrate that he or she has to a certain extent linked with the offense. Thus, he tries to make a hearer a possible agent of the complainable, the indirect accusation. On the other hand, the complainee could be directly accused by the complainer of making the offense. And number 4, blaming. The accused is guilty of the offense as it is presupposed by the act of blame. Now, how would we apply these theories? So these theories will give us more ideas in how we will incorporate them with our study. Specifically, they will serve as our focus in order to come up with such outcomes or results. This will help us explain why they were included in our study. In speech act theory, politeness theory, and the taxonomy of complaint strategies, we will apply them through asking questions from certain Meranaw students in Mindanao State University, main campus in Marawi City. After that, the outcomes or the results would serve as our basis, and thus we will also further explain and analyze their way of complaint strategies.
In the research design, this study is a qualitative research that involves collecting and analyzing non-numerical data. The data will be gathered will be analyzed through the following theories. First, the taxonomy of complaint strategies by Trosborg in 1995, to be followed by the speech act theory by Austin in 1962, and lastly, the politeness theory by Brown and Levinson in 1987. The following theories will play a significant role in the data analysis of the researchers. In the locale of the study, this study will be done in Mindanao State University main campus and will be further accomplished in College of Education in the academic year 2021 to 2022. The subject of this study is comprised of third-year students of BS Education major in English language program, having 29 participants. The participants were chosen since majority of them are Meranaws, which is the main point of this study is to identify the complaint strategies of Meranaws. In the research instrument, the major instrument that will be used by the researchers in gathering the data will be the Discourse Completion Task or DCT, which refers to the linguistic and pragmatic tool to elicit a particular speech act that will read the response of the participants through questionnaires related to speech act of complaint strategies. The DCT will be adopted and modified by the researchers from the study of Ishragi and Sharuki in 2016 that provides 12 scenarios of complaint strategies of speech act in which the participants will be required to write their reactions and exact response in real-life interaction related to the given speech act of complaint scenarios. In the data analysis procedure, to identify the complaint strategies of the participants, Strasbourg's taxonomy of complaint strategies will be employed to analyze the data, which are categorized into four: no explicit approach, expression of annoyance, accusation, and blaming. In addition, the following taxonomies have its respective subcategory with a total of 8 subcategories. Moreover, the data will be gathered will undergo the Austin's Speech Act theory and Brown and Levenson's politeness theory. After the data gathering procedure, the data will be calculated and tabulated using the frequency and percentage formula. Moreover, the DCT questionnaires for the respondents will be sent through the Facebook Messenger that can be accessed in the Google form.